Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Dayna Show. I'm your host, Dayna Kaplan, and today I had the privilege of sitting down with Fleur Hassan-Nahoum. And honestly, she's one of those women who just lights up the room. She is warm, she is brilliant, and she has the clarity when she speaks that just draws you in. Fleur's story is incredible. She began as a lawyer in London, served as the deputy mayor of Jerusalem, co-founded the UAE Israel Business Council, and now represents Israel as the Special Envoy for Innovation. She hosts her own podcast called The Quad. We spoke about her personal experiences during the war, the insights she comes to, and how it's deepened her advocacy for Israel, and the complex role that United States plays in Israel's future. She's thoughtful, real, and truly one of the strongest voices here in Israel. If you enjoy this episode, please like, subscribe, and follow. And as always, Am Yisrael Chai. Let's get into it. I want to introduce you formally, and I've written a formal introduction because you really deserve it. You're a phenomenal person, and I'm so grateful that you came and for all that you do. So here we go. Okay? Hold on a second. Let me get to it. Every guest that I bring on this podcast has something that goes beyond what they've accomplished. There's an energy, a presence, and an essence that you can feel. My goal has never been to just list achievements or talk politics. I try to understand what shapes people, the moments, the values, and the challenges that make them who they are. Those things are what people find inspiring. My guest today, Fleur Hassan-Nahoum, is one of those rare people who radiates both strength and grace. Born in Gibraltar, raised in a home of public service, her father, Sir Joshua Hassan, was Gibraltar's first chief minister. Fleur studied law at King's College London and built her career between advocacy, communication, and leadership. After moving to Israel, she served as deputy mayor of Jerusalem, became Israel's special envoy for innovation and foreign affairs, and co-founded the UAE Israel Business Council, one of the most groundbreaking partnerships born out of the Abraham Accords. She's worked with NGOs, championed women's leadership to help connect Israel's innovation with the world, and continues to speak out for Israel with passion and authenticity. Fleur Hassan-Nahoum, welcome to the Dayna Show.
Thank you, Dayna. It's great to be here.
Since I started the podcast, I've always mentioned the hostages at the beginning of the podcast. And today is the first episode where I don't have to mention them, only to say that we're so happy that they're finally home. It's Shechianu v'kimanu v'rianu lazman hazeh.
Yes, except that we have 16.
The live hostages are home.
The live hostages are home. I know. I say it at the end of my podcast every week. And it was nice to be able to say, we want all our hostages home for a dignified burial.
What do you think the chances are that we're going to get them all back?
I think they're going to have to. If Trump decides that, look, it was part of the deal. They're telling us that we broke the ceasefire. 72 hours it was supposed to, all the living and the dead in one go. They know where they are. Maybe one or two. I don't know.
You think they do?
Yeah, I do. They're playing with us. This is psychological warfare. That's exactly what it is.
And when they don't keep to the agreement and we don't retaliate, we don't do anything about it.
Well, we did. They killed 2 soldiers.
So what are we doing about it?
We have to, when we left in 2005, from the moment the first rocket landed in 2006 when Hamas took over the Gaza Strip, we should have said no. That's it. We're trying to keep to a ceasefire that the Americans want us to keep. We are exhausted. We don't want war. We never did. And at the same time, keep this kind of fragile ceasefire, but at the same time, put our red lines that we have always kind of retrieved from our red lines.
I know. Can we go back to the beginning for a second and tell me what it was like growing up in Gibraltar?
Gibraltar is a lovely place to grow up in. It's small, it's safe. It's almost like a kibbutz in a way. The Jewish community is tight, very traditional, very religious. And so I had a wonderful childhood in like a place that could be a child's playground, because when I actually grew up, the border with Spain was closed. Spanish government were trying to siege Gibraltar. It was very damaging to the economy of Gibraltar, but at the same time, it was super safe. It was like being in a little closed kibbutz. So it was very healthy. It was the 80s, so 70s, 80s. So it was a very healthy upbringing. We played outside, we climbed trees. And yeah, I only have good memories.
What was your Jewish education like?
So I went to Jewish primary school, like all the Jews do. Very strong Jewish education. I mean, I have criticisms that there could have been a little bit more Israel Zionist education, and there wasn't. But then I decided to read these things for myself.
Did you have their like conservative Orthodox and Reform?
We're Sephardi. Sephardi's never reformed.
Okay.
In my orbit, if you're Sephardi and less religious, you drive to shul and you park somewhere where nobody will see you, not because you're ashamed, but because you don't want to rub it in anybody's face.
Out of respect.
Out of respect.
Right.
So we were a traditional family religiously. We had a kosher home, always had kiddush on Shabbat, Friday night, Shabbat. But my father would have somebody drive him to shul. And out of respect, not drop him off at the door of the shul, drop him off, a little bit away so that he didn't want to rub it in people's faces. It was a respect thing. Everybody knew. And then when I was about 12, I said to my father, I won't go in the car with you anymore, because I was in this Jewish school and I wanted to keep Shabbat, and my parents were super, super supportive.
Oh, wow.
Super supportive. And so I became a little bit more religious than my parents, but I had a wonderful Jewish childhood, Jewish background in terms of education and school. Then secondary school, high school, there were no Jewish schools at the time, but there was a boys' school and a girls' school, like a public school, and I went to the girls' school. And then when all the other girls had their religious studies, a rabbi or a teacher would come in to teach us Jewish studies. So my Jewish studies continued. And then I just, I guess my Jewish education was stunted at some point during high school. If I would have gone to a Jewish high school, it may have been different. But then you can always read and go to shiurim, and that's what I always tried to do.
And where did your Zionism come from?
That's a good question. I think my home. My parents were big Zionists.
Did you come visit Israel when you...
So when I was 14, for the first time, I came to visit Israel and I fell in love. I'm like, I need to come back here. I need to live here. I'm not sure I knew that at the time that I wanted to live here, but I came back in love with the country, and then I started reading more about the leaders of the country. I read about Golda Meir. I read her autobiography. And then during the summers in college, we came here. Every summer I'd do a course, learn Hebrew in Ulpan, or do some Jewish studies. I was very connected, I had family here, would always come here. And then I was in London, I met my husband, and on the second date, he's like, listen, I have to tell you something. I'm like, oh boy, what? He says, I want to live in Israel. And I'm like, yes, me too. This is meant to be.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So you moved here. First of all, I want to ask you about your dad a little bit.
Sure.
Do you mind telling?
No, of course. I love talking about him.
What was his influence on you in terms of your endeavors in Israel?
So I'll give you his influence on me for public life. I'm not sure Israel or anywhere else. First of all, my parents never wanted me to be a politician because they knew how sacrificing it was. I studied law. I became a barrister. My father was a very unique leader for a number of reasons. He was incredibly humble. So he was in power for decades. He was the first mayor of Gibraltar, then became the first chief minister of Gibraltar. He kept winning elections. He lost one election his whole life.
Oh, wow.
One election his whole life. He was in power for the majority of his life. And yet, he was incredibly humble. He never thought he was better than anyone else. And he never acted in that way. And when I was 4, he was much older, with his second wife's children from his second wife. So when I was born, he was 58. When my sister was born, he was 60. My mother was 20 years younger. And after all his years and all his career, when he was 72, he decided he was going to retire. I was 14 at the time. And I went to him and I said, Papa, why are you not running again? And I was kind of doing it in I would say, a little precocious tone. I was like, is it because you're afraid you're going to lose? And he shocked me with his answer. He said, of course I'm afraid I'm going to lose. Do you think I want to finish my career losing? And that was, to me, both self-awareness. You know, when people are in power for a long time, they don't really understand what average people are thinking, or that, God forbid, people shouldn't want you anymore because you've been in power for too long. But he knew that. And he was humble enough to understand that even though he built democracy in Gibraltar. He's the Ben Gurion of Gibraltar. He built a democracy that didn't exist. He advocated for it, and he built these institutions. He was a state builder in a British territory. And even with all of that, he was modest enough to understand that, yeah, he could lose. And he didn't want to lose. And he didn't want to finish his very incredible, successful career losing. And, you know, Golda Meir said something once. She said, all politicians' career ends in failure. Well, my father's didn't, because he was smart enough and modest enough to understand that his time was up. And so for me, the most important lesson he taught me is you got to know when to go.
I love that. And I wish there were people in our government who do that as well.
People don't know when to go, but it's because they believe that the welfare of their country is inextricably linked with their own success. And my father was intelligent and modest and just wise enough to understand that his time was up.
How was he able to maintain the equality between the different religions? Because it wasn't obviously primarily Jewish. You had a lot of different faiths in Gibraltar. How was he able to keep that?
Well, Jews were only 2% like they are in America. The thing about my father was that everybody loved him because he loved everyone, you know? And so
getting emotional.
The people that cried more when my father died were the Muslims. They felt he was like their father. He protected them.
Wow.
Yeah. So I grew up in an environment where Jews and Muslims were cousins. That's how we spoke about each other, cousins. Muslims in Gibraltar, who were primarily Moroccan, preferred working with Jewish families in Jewish businesses for kosher reasons and for many other reasons. They knew Jews. And so I grew up in a very idyllic society in the sense that there was no antisemitism, really. I mean, how could a openly Jewish and Jewish proud man get elected 8 times successfully in a majority Catholic country? Only because everybody just accepted everybody for who they were. And so that's pretty idyllic to grow up in a place like that. Not that you didn't hear now and again the odd slur. People in Spanish used to say, when you're stingy, they say hebreo, like you're a Hebrew, a Jew, as like stingy. There are little things like that. But again, I go back to this. If you're electing a openly Jewish man as the leader of your place again and again and again, obviously it's not a factor. And that's a good thing. So that's how I grew up.
When was your first experience with anti-Semitism?
That's a good question. I think that
doesn't necessarily have to be in Gibraltar.
No, it wasn't in Gibraltar. I really don't think it was in Gibraltar, apart from, like I said, the little slurs.
Right.
And the people saying something and then going, oh, sorry, because you're in the room. I don't really consider that. It was just ignorance. I think I was in Spain one summer, and some people, I was in a group. There was a group of women talking, and I said something like, I am. This woman says, we're all Christians. I said, no, actually, I'm a Jew. And she was a little taken aback. A Jew? Oh. Are you hiding your horns or something? And I was like, what? So again, I consider that ignorance and a bit of stupidity. But then when I went to the UK to study, again, not in those days, which was 30 years ago. My God, I was 19, yeah, over 30 years ago. It wasn't open like it is today in the UK.
Or in the rest of the world.
Or in the rest of the world.
Right.
It was much more subtle. It was much more like you people. It was much more, Jews. I remember I was in a group of people, again, they didn't know I was Jewish, and somebody said something about, Jews control something, and somebody knew I was Jewish and goes, oh, Fleur's Jewish. So it was more subtle in those days than it is right now. And you could have a debate in college about Israel and the Palestinians. I used to go to debates. Nobody cancelled each other. We agreed to disagree. Sometimes it got heated, but we were talking to each other. That doesn't exist anymore.
Why? Why do you think so?
Because unfortunately, cancel culture and the fact that if you have a different opinion to me, you are not even in my eyes worthy of me listening to your opinion, which is very dangerous.
Yep.
Very dangerous. This is why what Charlie Kirk was doing was so important, because he was trying to bring back public discourse of disagreement. And that is unfortunately a dead art these days.
Yeah.
And it's a problem. It's a huge problem. He was right. When we stopped talking, it's when violence sets in. And look, ironically, how he was silenced. It's just, it kills me, this whole thing.
It was devastating. I mean, I followed Charlie Kirk. I mean, I watched a lot of his videos. I really liked. I didn't necessarily always agree with everything that he said.
Me neither. Me neither. I would have loved to have had a debate with him on, on abortion rights, on all sorts of things that I may or may not agree with him, even about Israel. But he was doing something very unique and very special. And it's a travesty and a tragedy.
It was horrible.
Yeah.
I think the entire world, and
I hope the movement continues, because if his legacy should serve to amplify what he was trying to do. And I think his incredible widow is doing really, really well with this. And she's grieving. And at the same time, keeping up his work and amplifying and multiplying it. She's awesome. She's really awesome. And I pray for her. I pray for God to, comfort her and give her strength to carry on.
I think it's really important. And I hope that if anything good comes from out of this, it's that they continue the movement and that people continue trying to stimulate conversation.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like what it's all about.
Yeah.
I want to talk to you about something that is, well, first of all, we have two issues here. One of what's going on in Israel and one what is going on outside of Israel.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's talk about what's going on inside of Israel and the trust that people have for the government right now. After October 7th, I want to ask you about your experience on October 7th, but I want to talk to you about the loss of trust of the people for the Israeli government because we weren't protected by them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So talk to me about your October 7th. Where were you? What was your first impression? You were in the position.
I was deputy mayor.
Deputy mayor.
I was deputy mayor. And I decided, this was October, end of October, there was going to be a local election. And I decided I wasn't running again. Maybe because of my father's guidance, or, my father's been dead for a long time, but because I just felt it was time to go. 8 years in City Hall is enough. I have to move on to something else. So I decided to leave and not continue after 8 years in City Hall. And the foreign ministry had appointed me, had given me like a quasi-diplomatic appointment called I'm a Special Envoy for Trade and Innovation. The idea was that my work at the Abraham Accords, I was going to keep doing and extend it to what we thought at the time was hopefully Saudi Arabia, that was going to sign, the Abraham Accords. So we were in that mode. I was in that mode, and I was looking forward to now going from local politics to international diplomacy to carry on the work of the people-to-people peace, which I'd been involved in from 2020. I'd just been appointed in September. So I was having the Chagim like everyone else. The week before, October 7th, that Saturday, I had celebrated my 50th birthday. And I was thinking, should I have it? Should I not have it? I'm so glad, one lesson from all of this, never put off a simcha. If you can have a simcha, never say, you know what, I'll do it next month. I was 50. I thought I'm going to do a party. My sister flew in and we had an 80s party.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
Nice.
It was fun.
That's so cool.
80s music. I had my Tina Turner wig. I think that's the last time I properly danced and had a good time. Because the following week we were at war. So we spent the week in Herzliya with some cousins. Friday morning, my father-in-law's taken to hospital. And my husband goes to hospital with his father. I go home with the kids. And my husband says, I'm staying in the hospital for Simchat Torah. All okay, he has to be with his dad. We stayed at home. So I woke up. My daughter woke me up with the sirens at 7:30, whenever it was. And my husband was not with us. It was me and the kids. So we go down to the shelter. First time, I thought it must be a mistake. Then another siren. Then another siren. Now, there are no sirens in Jerusalem normally because I always say the Golden Dome is our Iron Dome. There's 40% Arabs in the city of Jerusalem. If ever a rocket lands, it's never really that intentional because it could hit, and kill a lot of Arabs as well. So I thought something's wrong here. So I switched on my phone, even though I'm Shomer Shabbat. So I'm a Shabbat observant. My family is. And I thought, I open my phone and I see a friend of mine who's a journalist in the Arab world is writing to me what's happening. And I switch on the TV and I see the whole thing happening in real time. And I can't believe what I'm seeing. I can't believe this is happening. That sense of betrayal you're talking about with our security services, with our government, I can't believe it's happening. And as I'm kind of trying to understand of it, they're talking about 5 hostages, they talk about 10 hostages, they talk about a festival, they talk about people from kibbutzes are calling in the TV and saying, and crying on the phone, there are terrorists outside my house and the police is not answering and the army is not answering. So I'm seeing these people in their real time panic. Until this day, I don't know if they're alive or dead, the people that I heard on the phone that morning. And again, I'm getting reports. And they're saying, don't go to shul, don't go to shul. I wasn't going to. And then the BBC calls me. Now, as deputy mayor, and as the only one, there's a few deputy mayors, but I was in charge of foreign relations, economic development and tourism. So I was kind of outward facing for Jerusalem and bringing in from the world to Jerusalem. That was my job. I enjoyed every minute of it. I loved it. It was a privilege to get up every morning representing Yerushalayim to the world. So I used to do the press as well, which means that every time something happened on Temple Mount, on Har HaBayit, or Sheikh Jarrah, anytime there was a controversy around Jerusalem or a terrorist attack, and unfortunately there was many. Every year on Ramadan there was a balagan, there was a chaos on Temple Mount, always being blamed, we're always being villainized. So I'm already doing asbara, not at this level. I'm already doing asbara in the sense of I'm already the face representing Jerusalem to the world with all its complexity and its security issues for 5 years. I'm already doing this job. That's why the press had my number. So at 10 in the morning, the BBC is calling me. Now, why is the BBC calling the deputy mayor of Jerusalem the morning of October 7th? And I realized when I see them call me, is that if they're calling me, it's because nobody else is answering.
Oh, shit. Yeah.
I'm not the first call. Why would the deputy mayor of Jerusalem be the first call when something's happening in Gaza?
Okay. Did you know what was going on?
I did, because I'm already seeing what's happening on.
Did you have any briefing from somebody in the
No,
government?
the only thing I had was my Arab journalist friend sending me updates. That's all I had. And whatever I could see on TV. That's what I had. That's all I had. But I know my history. I know that we left Gaza in 2005. I know what's happened since. I've been in many wars already. I'm in the country for at this point, I'm in the country for 23 years. No, 2023. I'm in the country for 22 years. I moved in 2001. So I've lived it. And for the first 24 hours, all I did a lot of press, and I was doing sometimes 10 interviews a day. I was doing interviews through the night with America, because I felt at that point, if there's nobody telling the world what's happening, people have to know what's happening here. But I spent the first 24 hours reminding everyone that we left Gaza in 2005, because they're still talking about an occupation. Because when you throw mud enough, it sticks. And because we have never had a communication strategy or a public diplomacy strategy. Me and many other people have been shouting about this for years. And in Israel, it was always a nice to have, not a need to have. And all of a sudden we're facing, and I knew from the first minutes of October 7th, when I started doing those interviews, I knew we were going to have 24, 48 hours grace. And I knew that then it was going to boomerang on us, and somehow we were going to be made the culprits for our own massacre. I knew it, and it happened.
I'm never going to forgive the rest of the world for putting salt on our injury. I think that was even more than what was happening on October 7th was the world view of what was going on, and that we were actually the ones who were responsible for that.
Well, there's a word for that in young people speak, which I learned, and I didn't really know what it meant. But that's gaslighting. That's what they did to us.
Yeah.
They basically told us that our suffering was not valid, that our children weren't killed, that our women weren't raped, and that whatever happened to us, either we deserved it or it didn't happen to us. That's what's happened. And that's what's happened since. So the way I saw it is, I'm now on Miluim. This is my Miluim. Nobody called me. Nobody appointed me. But this is what we do. We step up. And nobody paid any of us. We step up. And for a while I was getting messaging from the public directorate. It's got a terrible name, the National Diplomacy Public Directorate. They were sending me messaging. It was there was nothing special about it, but at least I was kept updated for about a year about the main messages going on. Was never good enough, was never detailed enough, never really dealt with. We were always on the back foot. We were always on defense. We were never on offense. But I had to do it. This is what I could contribute to this war. I'm not a soldier. I don't have a gun. I'm not like you, MADA volunteer. This is what I do. This is what I can do for my country and my people. And that's what I've done since.
Have we made any progress in terms of the Hasbaran over the last 2 years? I know a lot of my guests that have come here say we need new Jewish leaders. We need better narrative.
They're right about everything. The only thing I will say is that what I've seen change in the last 2 years is that Israelis who didn't even know what Hasbara was, or the need for it, the young people who are on social media now understand the need for it. They never did before. And another thing is that Israelis don't really know what antisemitism is.
Right.
Because they've never been a minority in another country and they've never experienced that type of antisemitism. Many who now don't live here do. But
when I tell people, like my Israeli friends, about what's going on in Canada, they can't believe it.
They can't believe it. They think I'm lying. They think anti-Semitism is something from the history books of Germany in the 1930s. Right. They don't understand that it's going on, and even worse. This is the worst. They think somehow it's got to do with Bibi. Like, oh, if we had a different government, people wouldn't hate us. No. People have been hating us for 3,500 years. We're both reading the same book now. and it should be called not the history of the Jews, the history of people hating the Jews. That's what it should be called, right? That's our history, isn't it?
It's crazy.
Our history is
it's exhausting.
Being othered, and in different ways. And so for Israelis to think that the reason why people hate Israel is because of Bibi completely misses the point. And we have to do a much better job in educating people. But what I think has changed is the realization for the need to fight this war. Whether the government has gotten their shit together and done anything about it? No, not yet.
Were you for or against the Pinoy in 2005?
I was for it. I was for it. I believed. I cried when we all watched the scenes of people being removed from their homes. I remember being home with 2 little babies, and I remember crying for those people. But I thought to myself, why are 8,000 Jews there amongst 1 million Palestinians when we have to basically provide all of this infrastructure? Well, we are essentially, I don't have any issues with civil administration or military administration of a territory. We didn't. Yes, we legally occupied a place that was used to launch war against us many times. I had no issue with that. I had an issue with the fact that how sustainable could this be? 8,000 Jews amongst 1 million Palestinians. It's just not sustainable. Why are we having our boys have to be there? So I did feel that, and also because I just experienced in Jerusalem, remember, when I moved to Jerusalem, it was the Second Intifada, 2001. The Second Intifada came as a result of the fact that we had the audacity to offer Arafat a 2-state solution, 97% of the West Bank, half of Jerusalem, 2 quadrants of the old city. Imagine, we'd offered that. And he said no. And then started urban warfare in the streets of Jerusalem. When I moved to Jerusalem, there were buses blowing up and cafes blowing up. My husband and I would walk into a cafe and say to ourselves, where should we sit in case somebody comes to blow themselves up, and we should be less, maimed, dead. That's how we used to live. We used to go to malls to have coffee because at least a mall has a security guard and you're deep in and somebody can't explode themselves in a cafe, in a mall. That's how we thought about going out, or we didn't go out. That's how I moved to Jerusalem. Of course, my mother and my husband's parents thought we were nuts, but that's how we moved to Jerusalem, my husband and I, in 2001. I heard the bomb in the Hillel Cafe on Emek Refaim. I heard it. I had the ambulance. So we came from that. So I had no faith in the fact that we had a partner for peace. I knew at that point that we didn't. Because if you've offered them everything and they've now just started terrorism against you, these people don't want a state. It was very clear to me. That's when I went from being hopeful for peace to, no, we can't have peace with these people. And Arik Sharon made a very good argument that, okay, we're not going to have peace with these people. These are not our partners for peace, but let's do something unilateral that is good for us. Right?
And leaving Gush Katif was good for us?
Well, at the time, I thought it was. And I'm not sure it wasn't. The mistake was that from the first rocket, we didn't just go crazy. The mistake was that when we set the red line, we didn't keep to our own red line, and that we left the Philadelphia corridor.
Meanwhile, in Sderot, they were having rockets all the time.
Yes, and I went
and we allowed it to happen.
We allowed it to happen. They were our front line, and we allowed it to happen. We let those kids, 20 years, grow up running to shelters, and it was like it was another place.
If that would happen in the United States, there would only be one rocket.
That's how we should have acted. So I don't know in retrospect if more people would have died by staying there than leaving. I don't know. I'm not sanctimonious. I don't I don't think I know everything, and I don't know whether I know what they knew. I'm pretty sure I don't know what people making the decisions knew. And I had trust.
Do you still have trust?
That's a good question. I think we need to rebuild our trust, especially in the security services.
And whose responsibility is that?
It's everybody's. It's from the top, from the prime minister to the army. The army got lazy and arrogant. There's chauvinism everywhere. Those girls were saying something's up. And they paid the bet.
But it wasn't only I agree with you.
It wasn't just girls. A lot of people.
And weeks before, a couple of weeks ago, Jonathan Pollard was here. He said that he did a survey, or they asked him to investigate what was going on in the Gaza border. And he said there were big problems. Yeah.
Well, they knew about tunnels.
Yeah. They were cutting security fences.
Yeah, they thought that they could have a small, technologically apt army rather than people. We gave up a lot of our human intelligence in Gaza. We just thought, we made the fatal mistake of thinking that you can be rational with irrational fanatics. So the rational thought is, well, we are facilitating money from Qatar every month. They're living a decent life. They're Hamas, them and their people, not the people that weren't in Hamas. They were living miserable lives. We gave them 20,000 work permits the summer before, in the summer of 23. So they've got work permits, they've got money coming in, they are deterred. But deterrence is not just a state of being. Deterrence had to be active. They weren't deterred. They were planning to destroy us. And to be honest, Dayna, when you think about it, the miracle in all of the tragedy is, imagine if on October 7th, Hezbollah would have attacked Tel Aviv with those missiles that we now know what they can do. Iran attack with their ballistic missiles. And Hamas are continuing with their massacre rampage. Since 1973, this was the first time that Israel was Israel could have been in an existential threat. That's it. And this time it's not coming from the neighboring countries, it's coming from non-state actors bordering us and Iran.
That's one of the things that have come to my mind while I'm reading that book, that you see in the generations. They were strong at one point, and then they were obliterated, and then they were scattered, and then it could have very well happened in our generation.
This could have happened to us.
It was a reality.
And when you read that book, which everybody should read.
It's called The History of the Jews.
History of the Jews. Paul Johnson, a Christian, so it's important to read from a Christian's perspective. I think it's brilliant. Is that even after everything that's happened, when you think about our return here, it's really miraculous. It's miraculous. I can't help feeling that when I'm reading that book. And even everything that's happened, we are the strongest as a people we have ever been in history. Think about it. Think about the vulnerability of the kingdoms who constantly had to fight like we do. But look what our kind of minds and brains and talent have managed to develop for our own defense. It's almost miraculous. But having said, so that was my October 7th. And the week before, I was asked by the Jerusalem Post to write in the magazine, because I was turning 50, and it was 50 years to the Yom Kippur War, literally to the day. And I wrote this incredible article about the Abraham Accords and how the Yom Kippur War couldn't happen again. The week before.
Unbelievable. Wow.
And I think that was part of the problem. We got too comfortable we got too comfortable thinking that we no longer had existential threats. And the Jewish people always have to be vigilant that we do. And it's sad that we're in 2025 and we're still here fighting for our right to be in our ancestral homeland, which we have built from nothing, which we have become a technological superpower. Our communities are successful around the world, and we're still fighting.
One of the points that really comes to my mind about the October 7th massacre is that the Palestinians don't want more land. They want Israel gone.
Of course. That's always been the crux of the conflict.
Right. So when we talked about Gush Katif and you said that you were pro removing them to give the Palestinian lands, it kind of conflicts with that because we now know that no matter how much land we give them.
Now I know that.
Right.
Now I know that. I didn't know that then.
So how is that? I know that you were very proactive, and I'm sure you still are, with getting the Abraham Accords finalized. So we have that deal. Part of that, the conditions of that deal is freezing the annexation of Judea and Samaria. How does that fit into this narrative of land, giving land for peace or to appease the other nations?
I think that, look, there's rhetoric and there's reality in the Middle East. You have to understand that.
Yeah, explain it to me.
Please. When Arab countries say something, it doesn't necessarily mean. It doesn't necessarily mean that they actually mean it.
Okay, for example.
The Palestinian cause plays very well in the Arab street, the Muslim street. So do the Saudis and the Emiratis want a Palestinian state that could end up being an arm of the Islamic Republic of Iran in the middle of Israel? No, they don't. Do they have to say that they want a pathway? Just think about the language in those 20 points. It's to get on a pathway to statehood or self-determination, whatever it is. It's a very different thing. It's a very different thing. And so we have to deal with a diplomatic reality and say, you know, okay, we make peace with Saudi, which is a regional game-changing actor to make peace with. They are also the largest moderate Sunni country in the region that is against the Muslim Brotherhood, that has spent 20 years getting rid of the Muslim Brotherhood. The Wahhabis in their own country that are essentially the dam against the very toxic Islamic Republic of Iran. And they need to show their people that Israel is willing to think about a pathway to statehood.
Why do we always have to give something up?
We're not giving anything up.
We're saying that there's a possibility that we're going to freeze our annexation.
I think
since 1948,
yes.
It has this country that we've won fair and square.
Oh, yeah.
And every time.
Not just we've won it. We have a birth certificate. We won it. We have all the three conditions for not having any doubts around the fact that we're here. We have an ancestral claim. We won it. We developed it fair and square. And we conquered it fair and square from wars we didn't start. So we have everything.
We have everything.
We have everything.
And yet, every time the Palestinians feel like starting something up, they create some kind of a chaos in the country. And we end up having to give them something to shut them up.
Yes, except that this time they overplayed their hand and they've lost something.
What have they lost?
Half of Gaza.
Yes, but what happens if there's a two-state solution?
You honestly think that the Palestinian leadership, as it stands today, is going to fulfill any of the requirements needed to be accepted as a state?
Well, there are different countries that actually believe that they will.
Yeah, but it's performative. It's not real.
Oh, really? You think that they're just saying that to make some kind of an impression?
They're saying that to appease their own Islamists in their own countries. They're saying that because they're scared and they want to make sure that they have the Muslim votes in their countries. That's why they're saying that. They don't know anything. They don't know borders, president. It doesn't matter to them. It's all performative. And so, in Trump's previous administration, there was also a plan called Peace to Prosperity. And the Israelis accepted it, the Palestinians didn't. The Peace to Prosperity plan of Trump 7 years ago, had also a pathway. But like David Friedman said, they'd have to be Switzerland to get that. You know what? Let them be Switzerland. I'm willing to wait and see what happens with that. What I'm saying is that sometimes you just have to play the diplomatic game to get what your country needs to survive and not be isolated diplomatically. Even if we know that it's very unlikely. But look, if a Palestinian Mandela or Gandhi came forth tomorrow, I want peace. Don't you want peace? If there was,
Of course I want peace.
so what we're not saying anything different. What are we saying?
I'm not willing I'm obviously not in the government, but I'm not willing to give anything else away.
No, we're not giving anything away because we can't. Because if this war has proven anything, is that we need the strategic space. If we give anything up from Area C, they already control Area A and B, Palestinian Authority does. Area C is the highlands. It's the strategic advantage in Judea and Samaria. We can't give that up. It would be irresponsible.
How do you feel about Judea and Samaria, personally?
It's our ancestral homeland. Jews are from Judea. Samaria is the most beautiful part of the country. Who hasn't visited? And I think that the people living there have proven that you can thrive there. We should be there. And who should have a problem with us being there? Only people that want to destroy us. Who should have a problem of peaceful people living there, making their lives there? Who should have a problem? So I believe that we should annex the Jordan Valley. I think it's actually the lowest risk annexation, and see what happens with the end of this war.
Let's talk for a second about what's happening outside of Israel. We talked about the trust that we have or don't have for our government. Is Israel able to stand independently on its own without help from the United States or other countries around the world?
We're not an island. We live in a reality. We should be more self-sufficient militarily. Yes, we should. We're going to work towards that. I believe we are. But the United States gives us diplomatic cover in a very vile anti-Semitic place called the UN. You can't forget that. If the United States didn't use its veto against all the resolutions against us, talk about antisemitism. 30 resolutions a year against Israel, 1 against North Korea, 1 against Syria, 1 against Iran. It's ridiculous. It's like a joke.
Insane.
It's insane. Imagine if the United States weren't there, we would now be the pariah. So the book that we're reading is always about, what is the pattern in that book? The pattern in that book is that Jews go somewhere. Well, we start in our own homeland. We conquer it, we're given it, we conquer it, we stay there. We get kicked out, we get exiled, we come back, we get kicked out, we get exiled. The second exile, we are spread everywhere, even though there's always a Jewish presence in this land. And everywhere we go, we are the underdog. We create something. We integrate. We become productive members of that society. We contribute. And then we begin to get othered. Well, we're othered from the beginning. We get othered. We get boycotted. We get ghettoed. And when it gets too intolerable, when they're killing too many of us, we move somewhere else. And the whole thing starts again. We get there, the underdog, they hate us. We make it. We are contributing. We're productive. It happens again and again and again. So if that's going to be our pattern, and now the Jewish state has become the embodiment of the Jew, right? Because you see history repeating itself. So the next conclusion of that is that as a country, we would get othered, ghettoed, boycotted, which we've already seen with BDS, etc. Now, where is the only country that, for the most part, wasn't institutionally anti-Semitic at some point in the history? That is America. In America, even though there's always been anti-Semitism everywhere.
And it also depends on who's running the country.
Yeah, but in America, from its start, the ethos of America was, we're a melting pot, come here, the American dream. And the Jews made that American dream. Also, many Asian communities, Italian communities, whoever worked hard and contributed got to the American dream. And now we have a situation where without America, or without the cover of a big country like that, and we have other friends. We have friends in Latin America, we have other friends. But no friend is as important as America, let's be honest. America is still standing with those values of saying, no, we're not going to other, boycott, and double standard the only Jewish country in the world. They are standing against the anti-Semitism, the national anti-Semitism against our country. And I think it would be arrogant of us to think that we can, in this horrible world that we're discovering every day, how much hatred there is against us and how we're being gaslit about how it's all our fault and victim blaming. I don't want to be arrogant to think, hey, we don't need anybody. No, we do. We do. We need friends. We do. And the difference between us today and us in the 1930s is that nobody came to our rescue. And the fact that we have a country is because we don't want that to ever happen again. But as a country, we need friends.
I agree with you. But I think that in terms of, let's say, at the beginning of the war, right? When we needed to have a certain amount of permission from Biden to continue with the war or to do certain maneuvers in the war, that should never happen.
Well, it shouldn't happen that we're waiting for the Americans to send us certain types of munition, and they're slow rolling it because they're kind of trying to curate the war for us. I agree with you.
When it comes to security, we are the only ones who should have say.
Yes, but again, we don't live in an island. We live in a world. And you're right that it really depends which American government, and some are better than others, and we shouldn't be dependent militarily. We shouldn't have to wait for bombs or whatever we need to defend our people, to get our hostages back. We should never have that delay ever again. And I think that that's another lesson to be learned. But imagine what would happen to Israel in terms of the world if America didn't have our backs.
We would have to be stronger.
We're a little country.
I know that. I'm just saying that it doesn't really matter what we do because the hatred that the world has is not rational.
No, it's not rational. It's a disease. Anti-Semitism is a mental disorder. It really is. It's a mental disorder. I mean, you see people going nuts. You see Candace Owens, you see that other Eva Brown, Anna Kasparian. They go nuts. The hatred is so deranged.
It comes from jealousy.
For sure that
jealousy is also an irrational emotion. There's absolutely no logic attached to that.
It's insane. And I mean, I think these people. Look, the thing, I want to be positive. And the positive thing is that I have historical confidence. What does that mean? That means that I know, and it's cost us, but I know that every empire or any people that have tried to eliminate us have been eliminated themselves.
That's right.
I know that. So I have historical, cultural, and spiritual confidence in the survival of my people, and as an extension, the survival of my country. Because the world would be a very dark place for Jews without our homeland. That's it.
What's your emunah like, your faith in God?
I'm religious. I mean, I don't cover my hair.
I don't look
I
at
wear
people
jewelry,
yeah.
So I always say in Hebrew, "Lo ro'im alai, aval ani datiya." I don't fit that mold in this country, but I am religious. I am very spiritual in the sense that I believe in God. I pray to God. I talk to God. And I have a lot of faith that God made a promise to us, and that is that we will never be eliminated. And when people say, "Oh, the chosen people," I'm like, I just remember Tevye from Fiddler on the Roof. I know, God, we're the chosen people, but now and again, could you choose someone else? It's like when people have these discussions about the chosen people, it comes at a price. So I just have faith that we have the tools. If we, I'm watching this amazing show called The House of David. You have to watch it, especially because you're reading the book. And David is just about to fight Goliath, right? And Shmuel, the prophet, says to him, Joshua learned this, don't ask if God is with you. Ask if you are with God. Understand? That's the question we have to. Are we with God? Are we doing what we're supposed to do? Or are we just trying to cut each other up? What really worries me more than anything, more than any external enemies, is the divisions within ourselves.
100%.
That worries me so much more. And I honestly, on the 6th of October, we were in a bad place.
Yeah.
We were in a bad place. And we could have been heading towards the abyss, because the twice that we were sovereigns in our land, that we were kicked out of our land, it wasn't because of external enemies, it was because of internal divisions. We were so divided that people here called the Romans to attack the other Jews we didn't like. That's how we were exiled, the second exile. We did it to ourselves. You understand that? We were pretty close to that on the 6th of October.
Yeah.
We had foreign influence who does not have the survival of the Jewish people. We had them involved in creating these horrible divisions. And I blame all sides for it. But I do blame the whole kind of, you love Bibi, you hate Bibi. It's like the Trump derangement syndrome. That was creating a lot of rifts. And we could have been in civil war by now. And I hate to say this, but maybe the 7th of October, however horrible and tragic and however terrible it was, maybe it saved us from ourselves.
For sure.
Maybe.
For sure.
I'm not God.
Well,
I'm
it
not
unified us in the eyes of our enemy.
And that's the thing, that ironically, the external enemy has to come for us to wake up and understand that we were an existential threat. We forgot that we have real enemies, and somehow thought that our real enemies are internal, where we were reminded that our real enemies are actually external.
Both in Chutz La'aretz and here. The same thing is happening over there to them.
Yeah.
The people who were like, no, we want to assimilate. We don't want to call ourselves Jews. People are like, no.
Don't forget.
Don't forget, you're Jewish, no matter how.
October the 8th, Jews.
Yeah. Unfortunate.
But it's a pattern in our history, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a pattern in our history.
Yeah.
And, what's really interesting about the book is that it talks about the fact that actually being exiled was a good thing for Jewish people. Because when we were in our land at that time, we were fighting so much within ourselves. And then when we were outside, we were vulnerable, we became strong communities. We replaced the temple, a physical place, for the school. We prioritized education because we didn't have the temple and the sacrifices. We evolved outside of the country. And now that we're back in our country, we need that evolution to be something we practice, that unity. And that's really the main thing that concerns me now.
Do you think we have hope?
Of course. If anything, October 7th showed how wonderful in this country people are so incredible and resilient. Our soldiers, young men and women, 18, 19 years old, who saw battle, died in battle, were willing to die in battle for their country, their people. No country had 150%, of the conscription after October 7th. What people fly in to fight a war, to put their lives at risk?
Do you have army age children?
I do. I have a son who finished the army in February. I have a daughter in the army right now. I have another daughter who did army. Yeah, we're all in
How's
it.
that been for you?
It's interesting because my daughter, my son recruited before October 7th, and my son was non-combat. He had a low physical profile, but he did his wonderful service. And then when my third child goes into the army, it was after October 7th. There was a different atmosphere. That bakum, I had done 2 bakums, and it was, I don't know, it was heavy. It was a heavy feeling. We're all proud. I don't think I was crying with the first 2, to be honest. So yeah.
When my oldest went into the army, it was a totally different experience. That was about 6 or 7 years ago when he finished Sadir. When my youngest was supposed to come out of the army in November 23, and on October 7th, he had a weekend off and he was home. That Saturday morning, he got a call. You have to be in Yerushalayim in 10 minutes. And I shipped him off to Gaza that morning. I think that, like you said, the army-aged children have shown us an enormous amount of courage and bravery. And I'm so, so impressed by all of them.
That gives me hope.
Right.
Because they're going to be the future leaders of this country.
They're fearless.
They're proud, and they are now experienced. They are the Lions of Judah. They are what we were when we lived in our land in the era of King Saul, King David, everything that came after
Maccabees.
Maccabees, we were warriors. Then exile made us into more intellectual people. We lost our physical ability to defend ourselves. And now we're back and we have both. That's incredible. We just need to make sure that we cherish and preserve it.
How do you think things have changed in the last 2 years in this country?
Everything's changed. We lost our innocence. I think people understand that we don't have a partner for peace. So we just have to take care of ourselves. I think a lot of my left-wing friends woke up.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. A lot of look, like I said,
battles in the Middle East are not the same as in the rest of the world.
You see, I always thought it was the Ashkenazi Sephardi thing, like Sephardi Jews that come from the Arab world. We know the mentality. Ashkenazi Jews that come from Eastern Europe are looking at this conflict with the lenses of a European mind.
Right.
But it's a generalization. There's also Ashkenazim who get it. The difficulty here is that we are fighting a war in Middle East rules where the lens of the world is with Western European values. And we're both. And we're both. We're both. We are a thriving democracy. We're not a kingdom like the rest. We're not a dictatorship like all of the other Arab countries. So we're a liberal democracy with freedom of speech and all those values, fighting with people who are fighting like they're in the 7th century. And of course, because of the double standards against us, the whole world is judging us like if we were dealing with terrorists that give you a call before the bomb explodes. It's crazy.
It makes no sense.
But I always used to say that Jerusalem is where it's a city of convergence, east and west. That's Jerusalem. Heaven and earth. That's Jerusalem. Past, present, and future. That's Jerusalem.
When I was a little child, and I grew up in a very Zionistic home, but I used to look up at the sky when I was in Toronto and say, one day I'm going to live in Jerusalem. That was my dream.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I always wanted to come here and live in Yerushalayim. When I came here to move here, I didn't start out in Yerushalayim, but when I would come to visit Yerushalayim, I'm like, I love Yerushalayim to visit, but I don't think I could ever live here. My family lives there, but it's a very, very special, unique place.
Yes, but the whole country is unique. And
Yeah.
what we've done with it, nobody.
What are you up to now, Fleur? What are you up to now?
Okay, so I'm doing a number of things. I still have my quasi-diplomatic hat, which after October 7th, the foreign minister kind of pivoted me into a public diplomacy role. So I've been doing that, as you know. I've got my podcast, The Quad.
Right.
I always wanted to elevate more female voices, and that's what we've managed to do. It's a very popular podcast, and I have wonderful guests and wonderful commentary, all from intelligent women. I am the co-founder of an organization called Campus Israel. I'm setting up the infrastructure for more diaspora kids to come and study full degrees in English in Israel.
Wow.
Yes. So I really believe in this. I really believe that this is the next birthright. I don't want kids to go to college where they're being abused, treated badly, or made to choose between who they are and how to fit in.
Wow.
It's called Campus Israel.
Fantastic.
I've just raised some significant money. This is going to be my focus in the next year, because I truly believe that this is the next pioneering thing to do. It's the next new bold Jewish idea.
Wow.
And because we have the startup nation, and because our academia people don't understand that our universities in this country are on the level of Stanford. When you look at the unicorns that come out of them, when you look at the founders that come out of them, when you look at the money that they have for research, when you look at the level of the research, we're fixing the problems of the world, and it's all coming from our academia. All the deep tech, all the talent, AI talent, cyber talent, all coming from academia. I want that to be offered to Jewish kids in English. And I want to set them up with internships, and I want them to be in Israel for 3 years and to learn here and to get the best of the problem-solving brain that we have here and the pride of being a Jew and living here for 3 years. They will go back and they will be transformed and new, bold, gutsy, and empowered Jews. That's what I want. So that's what I'm working on. Wow. And, I'm part of a think tank, many other projects. I'm always one of these busy people.
How do you balance everything?
And I've got 4 kids, of course. Mm-hmm. How do I balance everything? I know how to delegate. I'm not a control freak. I find good people. So I have a co-founder for Campus Israel, Lisa Barkan. She's an awesome woman. I adore her. I find good partners to help me do the things I want to do.
And you have enough time for your personal life, your family, your husband?
I have Shabbat.
That's right.
I have Shabbat. I'm so happy I keep Shabbat. I tell all my secular friends, you do not understand what a gift Shabbat is. you're not doing something for someone. It's done for your good.
Right.
I would be insane if I didn't have Shabbat, because it's the day that I disconnect from my phone. The only day I worked on Shabbat was on October 7th when I did interviews, because I thought to myself, I'm here in this moment for this purpose, where all God will forgive me. But Shabbat is my time with my family. We always have people, I cook. And, my husband and I, we get out. We have friends. We have a social life. Maybe I sleep less than I should, but yeah, I always say I'll sleep when I'm dead.
I am in awe of you. You're really a wonderful person, and what you do for the country and what you've done for Yerushalayim and what you do in advocacy. I mean, when I watch you, you're one of the only female journalists here who doesn't let anyone get a word in edgewise.
I know, I just monologue.
Yeah,
That's
no,
my way.
you see a lot of times that people try to cut people off. With you, they don't.
They don't, because I don't let them.
That's right.
My husband says to me, now they know how I feel. I don't let them. I'm getting my point through, come hell or high water. It's a game of chicken. I just keep talking.
You do. You have the command of the room and the attention of everyone. It's really unbelievable.
Must be my mother's Moroccan.
I don't know what it is, but it's impressive, and I'm so happy that you're on our side.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for coming and for all that you do. And if there's anything else that you want to promote, please feel free. And
I'm just, ultimately, we're all warriors in this war. You're doing it in your way. I'm doing it in my way. We all have to figure out what God-given talents we have, skills we've built, and employ them for our survival and our future of thriving as a people and as a country. And that's it.
And we have to do it now. There's no waiting for tomorrow.
No, now's the time.
Fleur, thank you so much, sweetie, for having me.
Thank you.
I'm Israel. Hi. Thanks everyone for listening and watching. Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of The Dayna Show. If you like what you heard, you can subscribe to the podcast, like and share with your friends on social media, and rate us 5 stars. Don't forget to tune in next week, and we'll see you then.